It has been almost 3 years since we have had an MXGP video game released, and now it feels like we are finally on the verge of seeing MXGP 24 come to fruition. Thanks to an article put out by Traxion.gg earlier today, they released a lot of information about the potential upcoming MXGP 24 video game. So we're going to go through, break down kind of some of the things that they talked about in this article and see some photos that they have from a little bit of exclusive behind the scenes that they got from the new creators of the game, and kind of break down what we can expect maybe if this game does come out this year, as they said it might be able to do. So first off, let's take a look at some of these photos. Of course, this was all captured by Traxion.gg. They got some assets from the folks at Nacon and KT Racing, who took over the license for the MXGP 24 series this year. Of course, it was owned by Milestone from 2015 until 2021 when their license ran out, and it's been a couple years since we've seen the game. But these are some first look screenshots that we finally have of the game now, and you can see it looks pretty similar so far to the Milestone game, and we'll kind of talk about that throughout this article. But you can definitely see some, I don't know, a little bit different elements. I feel like graphically it maybe looks slightly different in some areas, slightly better in some areas as well, that we can, kind of hash over a little bit. And we'll talk about the history of Nacon and KT Racing and how they're kind of pseudo involved in all of this, of course. But they are replicating the 2024 MXGP championship season. At least that's what they say. So again, let's talk about this and take a little look at what this article is all about. So first of all, this article came out today, was titled MXGP 24, the official video game preview, All You Need to Know by Thomas Harrison Lord. So thanks to him for putting in the work and going behind the scenes to get all this information. So he says it's set for release at the end of 2024, the first official MXGP game by Nacon and KT Racing, and marks the start of a fresh beginning for the off-road motorcycle video game series. Like I said, it's the first time we will not have a Milestone game. So the FIM World Motocross Championship has been missing an official video game for nearly 3 years, but 2 months from now, that will mercifully no longer be the case. At least that's what the report is. We still have not had official confirmation on a release date of any kind from Nacon or KT Racing themselves. Fans of the premier off-road motorcycle racing series have been bereft of a virtual experience since the MXGP 2021, released in November of that year. That was an Italian studio Milestone game using the Unreal Engine technology platform, and that's the same one that Monster Energy Supercross uses, of course. November this year, we'll see the new title, MXGP 24, the official video game. So we're back to the official video game series. And there has been more change than the Riders Market silly season. Behind the scenes, the rights to make the licensed bike title have changed hands, now moving to Kiloton KT Racing. So that's what the name of KT comes from, is Kiloton, under the Nacon umbrella. And Nacon's associated with tons of stuff. They make components, they make controllers, they make keyboards, they make games, they publish games. They're all kind of all over the place, but they're going to be the publisher of this game, whereas KT Racing is the developer of this game, similar to how Rainbow Studios develops MX vs. ATV Legends, and then it's published by Nordic GmbH. Unreal has been jettisoned too, so they're not going to be using Unreal Engine anymore. They're going to use the French company's proprietary KT engine right here. So that is the same tool set that powers Test Drive Ultimate Solar Crown, which is kind of their marquee game, I guess, that KT makes, which will receive road-going motorcycles at a later date. Perhaps more pertinently, this is also used for the TT Isle of Man Ride on the Edge 3 series. So let's take a look at what Test Drive Ultimate Solar Crown looks like, and this is courtesy of Scirocco on YouTube. And this is their kind of like buggy / off-road gameplay that they have, and this is just really a visual representation of maybe what we can expect the aesthetics of this MXGP 24 game to look like, because you can see, like, visually it looks amazing. The lighting that they have with this KT Racing engine is really good. You can see what the deformation looks like underneath the tires as well, and we'll get into the deformation side of the game a little bit later on in this article. But I think, really what this gives us a look at with this game specifically, Test Drive Ultimate Solar Crown, is what we can expect visually. I mean, they look like they knock it out of the park with the visuals of this. I love like kind of the foggy look that they have here. This is a massive open world game as far as I'm aware that uses mostly street cars, but they also have this little buggy, so I figured this was the best way to show it. Kind of, what it looks like on dirt and the physical aspects of that. But obviously this is a car. But as they say, in comparison, to get a little look at the bikes, it more maybe closely resembles their TT Isle of Man Ride on the Edge 3 series, which courtesy of Throneful, we can see a little bit of gameplay here from that. This is street bike racing, though. It's not dirt bike racing. And street bike and dirt bike racing really is not the same. I mean, you guys have seen over the years GP bikes form into MX bikes, and it took a long time for that series to really kind of hit its zenith, which it's now kind of hit. They can make very good street bike physics, but it maybe won't actually carry over the way that we really want them to into a motocross game. So while this does look very good for street bike racing, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be 100% perfect, but it does give us a little bit of an insight into what they can do with this KT Racing engine as opposed to the Unreal 5 engine that was used by Milestone. So let's talk a little bit more about this MXGP series reset. And this was a quote from a Nacon representative that says, "We start from scratch at KT and we try to keep similar things as before, but add our own take." And this is a French company, so very clearly a little bit of, not perfect English here, but that's okay. Obviously, they're, going to be learning along the ways with what fans like and trying to get as much information out as possible. They further went on to say, "I like to say the development has been 10 months so far at the time of speaking, so it's been busy, but 10 months is a very quick amount of time to build a game and turn it around. So I think that there's going to be some bumps in the road, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there." So Traxion actually got a hands-off preview at the German Gamescom event. So they were not able to actually play the game, but they, like they said, they talked about some of the things that they saw. And they said the bike detail looked more than up to matching or even exceeding past MXGP installments. Traxion here says the track recreation looked authentic on the surface, matching real-world counterparts down to the trackside sponsored vehicles and marshals waving yellow flags. Each has been recreated using photogrammetry, I guess is how you say that, to, says Nacon, 10-centimeter precision. So that's, has to do with their polygons and how they kind of create models and stuff like that to a 10-centimeter spec. That's pretty good, I feel like. The surface notably deformed when our rider repeatedly rode over the dirt sections. And you can even see from this screenshot here where they're going is normal, and behind them there's actual deformation on the ground, which, again, I think is, a positive look. Whether it affects the rider ability is another question. Traxion does say that the dynamic system impacts the physics of your AI-controlled rivals. So hopefully that means that the ruts actually do something, because they didn't do a whole lot in the MXGP series over the years. The weather's not changeable mid-race, but you can select from a mixture of different conditions, including rain. And they also said they couldn't help but notice a familiar KT engine quirk of the surrounding environment in the distance looking decidedly featureless, which they mentioned in the aforementioned TT series. Definitely a little bit featureless. You can see from this image right here. I mean, there's nothing going on this hillside over here. It's basically just like a 3D image of Google Earth, probably looked down, and then they overlaid that, which honestly is used in a lot of like PC games. MX Simulator, MX bikes both use kind of 3D images to scan down and look at the track like that. But again, featureless is certainly a way to explain that doesn't look like anything other than just a distant hill in the background. And they kind of referenced that in this article here. So they talked a little bit about a detailed career mode, and it'll feature quick race, time attack, season modes, as expected, alongside fleshed out career mode. The structure seems reminiscent of Overpass 2. I'll show some gameplay of that in just a second. A published game by Nacon last year, and also KT Racing's 2022 WRC generations. So they've made the WRC series for a long time. In fact, if we look at the games that they've put out, Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown is kind of their marquee one, like I said. But they have Endurance Motorsports, the WRC Generations, WRC 10, I guess, was their last release, and they have them all the way down, Rally V4, Isle of Man series over here, and then the MXGP game, which they have no information on right now. They have nothing of a website or anything like that just yet, but kind of a reflection of where they've come, which is some, mix of like dirt series car racing games with Rally, but also more street-oriented stuff with endurance racing and the new Test Drive game that they have. So they're kind of across the board for motorsports, but they've never crossed into this genre with motocross before. So the structure requires creating unique rider and visiting centralized home hub after each round of a season. Very similar to what Milestone did. There's a calendar system, a social media feed, branching development paths for both rider and team abilities. You start a series of junior races for a fictional team before signing up to a real world and real world only MX2 team. Ultimately, the aim is to progress further and become an FIM MXGP world champion. So let's take a quick look at what Overpass 2 looked like, just to show you a little bit of maybe what they see in Overpass 2 that compares to MXGP 24. So again, here's a look at Overpass 2, courtesy of Game Riot. And Overpass 2, again, was like a car racing game, but more on the off-road discipline. And they had this kind of like skill tree thing. They had sponsors. They had ways to upgrade the vehicles. And I'm kind of interested to see if they follow that similar path with the MXGP 24 video game, because one thing that was lacking from the Milestone series was you would get sponsors, but that was kind of it. Like, you wouldn't really do anything with those sponsors. So Traxion, like I said, they did not get to play the game, so they can't talk about the physics. They did see a customized setup screen for motorcycle settings. What wasn't present during their time of the game were scrubs or whips, but we were told that they will be included at launch. So we don't even have gameplay yet, but on top of that, we don't have gameplay that even shows scrubs or whips from a third-party source yet. So who knows what air physics are going to be like? We're just going to have a big question mark there for a long time, I feel like, until this game gets any sort of gameplay shown from it. And then Nacon continued by saying, we want the game to be like a simulation, but have help with assist to make it more accessible to the rider. Honestly, a lot of this sounds like what Milestone's philosophy was with the game, so I'm a little bit reserved about how that's going to turn out. But new company, new physics engine. It could be completely different and very much what we hope to have in a game, but we don't know yet. We'll have to see it. Manual physics options and all that stuff, very similar to what we had with Milestone. They actually have a cool thing with online multiplayer where the online multiplayer will not see a traditional lobby browser or creation system. With the stated aim of simplifying the process and avoiding waiting times for a race, instead there's a daily challenge mode, and the development team sets up the format every 24 hours, and you try to beat your score up against 9 other players. Honestly, I have no idea if this is going to be good or bad. It kind of sounds cool, but if you eliminate those multiplayer lobbies, I think people will be pretty annoyed that you won't be able to race against like your friends and stuff like that. So I could definitely see that being a change that once the game is launched or around, a few months in when they start making updates to it, we'll see a completely rehauled multiplayer mode. And then they also have this European open world area, which they said the venue sits in a 4 kilometer squared open world environment. And 4 kilometers squared is about 1.5, 1.6 miles squared, which basically means that your vertical and your horizontal is 1.6 miles, and then the whole area is those two combined. So if you start at one end and go to the other end of the map, more or less you should go about, it should take you about a minute and a half, a minute and 40 seconds if you're going 60 miles an hour to get from the bottom to the top of the map, or from the left side to the right side or whatever. Obviously, diagonal would be a little bit longer, a little over 2 minutes to get across. But they also say that the environment is going to have, luscious area, which means trees, lakes, forests, farmers, and a quarry. And inside there will be 6 tracks to mess around on. There are plans to include some varied game modes, such as last person standing or hidden letters to collect. I mean, honestly, Milestone to a T with what they were doing with their games. So I don't know if they're really like branching out much differently from what we already saw in the Milestone games, but I think that there's going to be some subtle changes in here that hopefully will be a good thing. So hopefully this game is coming out soon. Here's just their MXGP 24 at a glance kind of look of it. Currently aiming for a November release on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S. So November, what ends up happening with game releases is they'll say like, yeah, coming Q4 of 24, which is Q4 is anything from October to December 31st. When they say November, that probably means late December, because they'll make a couple of changes and adjustments to the game around release time, and that usually pushes the game back to the very end of the quarter. Like, very often games get delayed until the very last physical release date that they can have for the quarter. I'm sure they want to have it out by Christmas, but that always changes depending on development cycle. And if they say that it's going to be released in Q4, almost always it has to be based on a lot of different factors when it comes to their licensing agreements, when it comes to getting the game rated and stuff like that. So again, this is all hearsay because they haven't actually said anything themselves. This is just through Traxion and what Traxion has learned about the game, but we'll again see whether or not sooner or later they actually have official word about that. The official motorcycle racing game of the 24 World Motocross Championship season, created from scratch from Nacon and KT Racing using the KT engine. Like we said, we just went over that. 5 camera views, the angles of which can be adjusted on the fly using the D-pad. There's a photo mode, 21 circuits, more than 50 riders from the categories of MXGP and MX2. So no EMX 250 or anything like that. Quick race, time attack, season, career, and online daily challenge modes, and a massive open world environment is what we know so far about this game. So that's kind of all we have today about the potential upcoming release of MXGP 24, brought to you by Nacon and KT Racing. Big thank you to Traxion.gg for going out and finding this information. Like I said, I have reached out to sources at KT Racing, but haven't heard back yet anything about how true some of this information is or anything like that. But I trust Traxion because they've done great work over the years, and definitely recommend checking out either their YouTube channel or this website. I'll link this article in the description below so you guys can also go look at it as well. But there we go. We finally have maybe the most thorough update on MXGP 24, hopefully coming in November, or at least coming soon, with all of these different aspects of the game as Traxion has laid out in front of us. So let me know what you guys think. Do you like some of these changes that we've seen from the Milestone series over to KT Racing now? Is there anything that you're hoping they really nail down and give us some real good insight to before the game launches? Hopefully we see gameplay soon, or at least some early alpha access or something like that, so we can really get an opinion form for ourselves. Or maybe we'll just wait for the next 2 months and have nothing until the game drops in November sometime. But either way, that's our quick update on this. And again, thanks to Traxion for the news there. Get in the comment section below, ask any questions if you guys have them, and we hope to see you guys in all of our future videos here on Start Your Systems. So long for now.